this is my section on how to, I'll just write it up there, how to save the world. Fast and easy. Approach. I should say, and safe. And safe approach. So, all right, so we've got, I've got a scenario to go through, okay? And I'm just putting it together here. So, it seems to me that the first level is we have, like, for instance, an environmental reality. All right, and it's has to do, I mean, one of the pieces of it is that we're using about, I mean, we're kind of using planet Earth, that's one planet Earth, and about a third of another right now. So we're past sustainability. So we're using up, we're now in a decline, we're not being sustainable. And we have many millions of people, many millions, who want to consume like North America is consuming. They want all of China and lots of people. So our consumption is going up.
You could say billions.
Increasing, yes. Billions even. Okay, so that's the environmental reality, and then there's a level of symptoms that we're seeing already, we're starting to see, and of course some don't. There's global warming. There's species extinction. There's peak oil. I guess the news just came out today. I don't know if you noticed that Saudi Arabia is greatly overestimated what their oil production is capable of. So, and there's, they go on and on. I mean, poisons in the drinking water, and we're losing. I mean, I don't know all the symptoms, but they just go on and on, and they're real, and we're experiencing fish supply. So, okay, and then there's drivers. Okay, we know there's some vicious circles, vicious cycles that are driving this, that hint at possible solutions. I mean, one of them is the tragedy of the commons, and that I talk about in my book, which is basically that the nature of the commons is that people will in a competitive, special interest dominated world, people will try and export their costs. Corporations will export their costs. So we will try and use the commons as rapidly as possible so that we get the benefit of it and get the profits. And so their system is structured to destroy the commons. And there's a great video that describes our linear production system in what needs to be a circular world. It's called A Story of Stuff. It's on the web. And I think that tells a beautiful study. I think it's storyofstuff.com probably. And then, I mean, when you think about banking, I mean, we know that the banking is set up in an odd way where it's not like loaning somebody, your shovel or something. It's like when you loan money, somehow now you have to pay more. So there isn't that money. I mean, it's like giving somebody a shovel and then having to come up with more than a shovel to give them what they do. So it's like, how do you create that money? And of course that's created through economic consumption. So you go out there and you look at anybody passing down this street and they're trying to sell somebody more stuff, whatever it is. More banking, more bigger house. So our whole system is driven toward consumption.
Increasing consumption.
Increasing consumption, right. And of course that's part of the difficulty that we have. So these kind of are the problems, and these hint at solution strategies. And then, okay, so how do we shift into the realm of solutions? You know, what are we going to do? And one level of solutions has to do with, I mean, the first level is denial. Okay, people just, you know, it's a lot easier to say, I can't do anything about this. Somehow we need to just let this go. And, or just say it's not happening. Global warming's not happening. It's not really there. I mean, you've got 99.9% of scientists saying it's there, and yet people, real life smart people are saying, no, it's obviously a plot by Al Gore to make money, you know, or something. So, it gets ludicrous, really. So, so then, in this realm of denial, there's a simple model that I took from George Land. I think it's a beautiful model of that any system that gets going, finally, once it gets going, it starts to grow beautifully, and then it tapers off because it starts to consume the resources. And then at some point, people notice, my gosh, we've gotten away from our basic principles because we've made these modifications here. So we need to get back to basics. So then they say, oh, the basics are here, would have taken us here, so let's get back to basics. They call it the back to basics bump. And of course what that does is it actually gives you a slight improvement at first, but then you know, when you get back to basics, you realize you start trashing the environment even worse than you were, and it gets things worse. So, and there's a lot of things about that. I think the Tea Party is a good example of that, you know, and that's on the right side, and then the left side is the similar kinds of things. Is that people are, well, maybe on the left, they're imagining that certain solutions will take care of things if we just educate everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If we just, then everything's going to be fine. So, and that's kind of the next level here, is making change within the system. So within the system is, and it's like, I do what I can. And actually this has a huge proportion, there's a lot of cheerleading going on about this. If you see, I mean, a lot of people will talk about all the wonderful things that are happening as entrepreneurial, social entrepreneurs, and then say, oh, it's all going to get better, you know. Social entrepreneur, an entrepreneur, a natural capitalism. These are all great things. We got to do these.
Right.
Got to do them.
Corporate social responsibility.
Corporate social responsibility. And education. If we just improve everybody's education, then that will make the difference. I mean, there's lots of things that we can do in the system that, and just learning skills, natural, you know, just learning improved skills. And then there's, I guess I've been to, so that's that. And then there's a level of, kind of two levels here. Let's call them the deep change level and the systems level. And this is, the deep change is like where, and this is politics, and this is economics, economic system. We need to change the economic system, the political system. And then here's like the culture of thought, values, human values, relationships. So these are all connected. These usually are not, the deep change is not so much the culture part, is not a systems thing. It's like if we change all the pieces, then gosh, you know, won't that change the system? Well, not really. That's not what a system is. You can change all the pieces of a bicycle and you still, you know, have a bicycle or whatever. So and changing the politics is really what it boils down to. The politics is how do we think and talk and make decisions, collective decisions? How do we think, talk, and make collective decisions? I say choices. And this is economic systems. Well, how do we allocate resources? How do we decide who gets to make them? Who gets to live on the fancy house on the bluff, and who has to live in the slums? You know, I mean, how do we allocate resources and decide what to produce? And the idea is to set up a system where we can just have freedom. And all of our processes are based on the idea of individual freedom. We got to keep that. That's a value. That's what we do. So this is really about, you know, how do we create values? Values and share this place and relate. Something like that. So, and these, I mean, you change the economics, you change the culture. You got all of a sudden families have jobs, they have time to be with the kids. You change the economics, you change the politics. You change the politics, you change the economics, you change the culture. So these are very much interrelated processes. And if we go in and deal with these systems, that affects all the way up the chain. It's like we can do, then all these solutions, this field of solutions of what I can do becomes more effective, and we break out of denial, and we can break out of denial, and we can start dealing with all this stuff. But how do we get this to happen? Who's the we that makes these deep systems changes? That's the question. And so to me, there's another level of change. I'll call it the meta system level. And that's where the leverage is. If there was to me, there's like 3 meta systems, if you will. This is the basic way that we hang out together on this planet. This one is kind of a hierarchy, okay? So there's a kind of a we that probably got together, or we imagine got together, or something, and said, hey, let's have a hierarchy, or actually it was a power struggle that failed, and so the people that won get to be the king, and everybody else lines up with whatever the king wants, or the lord of the manor, or the lord wants. And that got shifted to a system based on freedom and competition. So this is based on loyalty and allegiance to the leader. This is a shift system based on competition and freedom, individual freedom. And the problem is, of course, that our individual freedoms do not necessarily translate into collective wisdom to set up the system that we want to have happen. So how do we shift? This is the change we're interested in. How do we get this collective we that can make intelligent choices about how we align our politics, our economics, and our...
So the hierarchy is based on loyalty, what do you call the second one?
This is the box system, yeah.
Okay.
This is based on
competition.
It's a game. Essentially, what happened is that the founders set up a game. They said, "Here's the Constitution. Here's the social contract. This is what we're going to do. Goodbye." So now there's this game in charge, and the idea is that we all compete within the rules, and that there are structures to set up penalties if you don't obey the rule.
So is this a legalistic system? Like,
Well, it's certainly true in politics that we have this competition within the rules, that we have representatives, we have this special interest battle process. It's certainly true in economics that we have this, we call it free marketplace, but it's set up as to be a free competition within the rules. And then it affects, it's true in culture too, because what we end up then is this, everything is based, these are interrelated, so we end up with a cultural system that thinks in terms of object, subject, competitive processes.
I mean, it seems like you could go through and look at sort of the hierarchy versus the law and order. Maybe that's, a democratic rule of law or something like that would be the second one.
Yeah.
Whether there's competition of ideas, competition economically, etc. And look at those three parts of the system.
Yeah.
Politics, economics, the culture, and how they change from one to the other. But what I'm curious about is then that third one. What holds it together?
Yes.
There's power on the left side of the hierarchy. Somebody has more power than everybody else.
Right.
That holds it together. Loyalty is what serves it. The second one, the rule of law, holds it together. Competition and freedom is what serves it. And the third one, what holds it together, and what is it? What is it that serves the we system?
Exactly. So what holds this together is a conversation. And it's a particular kind of conversation. It's a timeout. How are we doing? Is this the kind of world we want? Are we okay with this? And in this conversation, it's all of us. And it's what I call a choice-creating conversation. And we're not decision-making, yes, no, but we're trying to figure out what's best for everybody. We're trying to be creative and collaborative, figure out what's best for everybody. It's all of us, and it's kind of where we seek unity. We seek one answer that works for everybody. That is what's called the we the people conversation. It's the we the people conversation. And it happened a couple hundred years ago. And it was how we set up this system right here. We said, oh, there was a we, then these founders kind of got together and said, here's what we propose, and then there was this conversation among the whole system, and the whole system decided, hey, this would work if we added the Bill of Rights. And so they added the Bill of Rights after the founders met, and at that point, with the Bill of Rights, pretty much all the stakeholders, not the Native Americans and blacks and women and so forth, non-property holders. But at the time, it was a brilliant leap forward. There was kind of a we the people that said, hey, let's try this new system. And that was a great new system. It's been 200 years, and now it's breaking down. And it's breaking down because we can't be free to make individual choices and ignore the collective impact. And that is the whole thing. That's the whole thing. That we have a collective intelligence that's missing. It's not that we get rid of individual freedom, we keep that. But we just add one piece, and then we add a certain kind of conversation to our existing meta system. That's this thing. This is the box we've got now. We add this meta conversation. And we do it in a very simple way. We just stop and think in this creative, collaborative way every so often. And that creates this larger we the people that's saying, okay, how do we make this system work in an intelligent, collective way? And the way that happens is, the way this can happen is through two pieces that I've talked to you about, or three actually. One is dynamic facilitation, because it focuses on this kind of conversation, choice creating. Now there's lots of people out there trying to make deliberative democracy work. that's actually happens within this system. That's like, how does somebody give me the options, and we weigh these options, and then we say and we eventually vote on what those are. So it's not the creative, choice-creating conversation it's really the heart of democracy. The heart of democracy is where all of us somehow say, how are we doing? Is this working? How do we fix things? How do we make things work for you too? And all of us come together. That is the missing conversation. So the deliberative democracy, it fits, it's great stuff, but it fits inside the box. It doesn't give us this. The dialogic processes, better dialogue in Congress, better dialogue among the people, but involving the people in dialogue, that sort of thing. All that's nice too, but it isn't the choice-creating conversation. Because dialogue doesn't actually come up with group answers that we're going to do. Dialogue comes up with better understandings and transformation, personal transformation. So the dynamic facilitation is one of the pieces, and what that does is when you facilitate, it's a very simple thing. You as facilitator elevate the thinking level of everybody in the room. So people just show up, they start talking, but they find themselves talking at this high level, choice-creating level. Now, that's for a room. How do we do that for a very large system of people, like a global system, or a national system, or a city? And that's what the Wisdom Council process comes in. Which uses randomly selected people. Small groups of randomly selected people who are facilitated to choose issues and come up with unanimous choices and to report them back to the larger population in a way that involves the larger population in the conversation. So these two pieces are part of what we call the WISE democracy strategy. Just say wisedemocracy.org, since I'm running out of paper. And so the bottom line on this stuff, of course, is that these ideas are now being tested. These have just been ideas. And the original, in fact, when I wrote my book, I thought this had to be a constitutional amendment because I didn't understand the importance of choice creating. And now realizing that the choice creating is really a distinct form of thinking and talking, and it's the pivotal piece. Now we don't need a constitutional amendment. It's something that can just be set into motion.
If I'm sitting back and I listen to what you say,
Yeah.
I think, all right, this is about creating a different conversation among we, the people, in order to decide, like the founders of this country did 200 years ago, about, well, what changes to the system do we need to make? How do we need to create a new system that works? Right?
Yes. Except I don't like the word decide, but yes.
Okay. So to discover, create. So what makes them better able to come up with that system, the changes to the system that need to happen? What makes them better equipped to do that than our experts?
You mean these randomly selected people?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
and who's going to believe them and actually make the changes?
See, the one thing is that this is not a process of excluding the experts. Right now what happens is experts are getting together all the time and telling us what the answers are. And they're largely ignored. I mean, President Obama just had a commission come back and say what we need to do economically, and of course it was politically incorrect, so it's ignored. So the experts are not in a position to, I mean, they're in a position to do some things, but not make that kind of difference. But if we randomly select, and if you're part of the pool, and I'm part of the pool, all of us are part of the pool, and if we randomly select 12 people, and you bring them together for a short period of time, where they're not special, they're just us, and you and I have the commitment to watch their presentation somehow. Like if it was a constitutional amendment, we would be watching. So it's like the State of the Union message from the people to the people instead of from the president to the people. So if you randomly select 12 people, and if they choose the issue, and if they reach unity, and that's what happens every time we do a wisdom council, these people come back pumped, absolutely pumped. Here's what we came by. We started with education, we didn't know what to do with it, we don't know enough about it, but we decided that this something was the key issue, and that we really, or that one group came back and said, what are we doing? We're a society, we're not paying attention to our kids, we're not taking care of our kids. What kind of society are we? I mean, that's basically what they said. And all of a sudden, it's a moment. It's fine, we can all say that as individuals, but when a randomly selected group chooses that topic and says that, and all of us are hearing, and then we go into our small groups and talk, it turns out that you go pan around the room and everybody in the whole room, virtual room of everybody, is basically saying, yeah, I think so too. So here's a way to facilitate the whole system to be in choice creating, conversation. The experts can't do that. And to reach near unity with energy toward getting that accomplished. So the experts can tell us something, but there's no energy to get it to happen. But in this case, the other piece is that now we have the experts in the room. So all these experts in society are in the room, they're talking, saying, so we have this random group that's saying, here's what we need to do. If somebody's an expert and says, no, that's not right, they say, oh no, there's some things you don't understand, and everybody turns and looks to them for guidance at this point. And then you randomly select, this is ongoing by the way, so the Wisdom Council process, a new group meets, and they say, oh, gosh, we learned something since last time, and it's not, here's the revisions that need to happen. So the randomly selected group is, for the first time in maybe ever, a microcosm of the people. And when they speak in a way that all of us say yes, and if they choose the issue, we've actually created a legitimate we the people. They could say, that was a nice constitution, let's try this one, and if we all say yes, then we have a new constitution. Nobody officially called a constitutional convention, it's just facilitating a new conversation where all of us are a part, and we have this new power of all of us reaching unity together that is actually in charge of this other system.
So convince me as a skeptic that this is actually possible to reach unity.
Yes.
We have people on widely disparate poles fighting each other right now.
Yes.
What's so magic about this that actually creates, where does the unity come from? How does that happen?
Well, the key piece is to realize that we have a system, and we're living inside a system that is structured on competition. So we have people poles apart because they're inside this system.
So I don't see the connection. So
if we could take people outside of the system lo and behold, we find out that we're not all that far apart. If we're just visiting together about what we all want, how we see the problem, what we're trying to do, we now can engage one another in a way that we haven't reached unity quite easily.
So it's almost like the system creates roles for us, and one of the key definitions of those roles is to be antagonist.
Sure, if you are going to set up a system where somebody proposes an idea and we're going to discuss it and then we're going to vote, especially if we're going to have representatives, we're going to have an argument. We're going to have somebody propose an idea, and this is all about special interests, so we're going to try and, those against the idea are going to marshal their arguments and try and argue against it, and those who oppose are going to try and argue their, they're going to try and enlist as much power.
Because what's put out is a partial idea. It's not an idea that's been generated by choice creating. It's an idea that's been generated by a special interest.
Exactly.
And so then you have the warring of special interests, and I need this, and I want that, and how do I get you to give up your piece so that I can have mine?
Right.
And so those different needs, person A needs thing A, and person B needs thing B that's not A.
Right.
Those different needs aren't going to go away. How does choice creating get them to agree on the same thing?
Well, I mean, I think the best a fun illustration is one time I facilitated a group on abortion, for instance, and obviously they had the pro-life position and the pro-choice position, and it seems like those are the only two answers. But as soon as you enter into the spirit of choice creating, you realize, well, actually neither answer works. Neither answer actually solves the problem, and in fact the problem people have forgotten what the problem is. So as soon as we get into choice creating, we realize, well, what's the problem? And the problem turns out to be, how do we help every child to be born into a family that wants and loves them? Something like that, that's really defined. Well, now we're working together trying to figure out how to do that. And we look at the idea of making a law as a stupid idea. So we just discount that whole process. I mean, maybe we probably come to something that's more creative than that. If we're in the circle environment. If we're in the box environment, we're stuck. We have to go back and forth. There's only two possibilities.
Okay, so what you just said raises a flag. Okay, so we, in the abortion example, so we realize that what we really need to do is create the conditions where every child gets to be born into a family that wants them, right?
Yes.
And we realize that this, the law isn't the way to do it, so we just chuck the law. So when you say that, it's like, I think, well, okay, so we have this special environment where we create this choice-creating atmosphere, and we generate these wonderful ideas, and then but implementing them happens in a messy world where some people aren't really even part of the conversation and haven't been plugged into it and are still serving their self-interests and will exploit whatever they possibly can, and without laws and strict rules to control what they're able to access, we have chaos.
Yes. Well, those same people, I mean, yes, they have roles. They're CEOs or whatever, but you tap those same people on the shoulder and...
No, I'm talking about your average criminal.
Well, okay.
For example.
Yeah, all right. Well,
or whatever, I don't know. People who would... psychopaths, people who would take advantage of others.
There are some psychopaths
part of
that have
the
their wires crossed or something. But basically, people, I mean, when I started working in the sawmill, which is where I developed dynamic facilitation, I mean, we had so many people that were characterized that way by the foreman. The foreman would point out to me that these people can't do this normal thinking. And one of their favorite expressions was 95% of those people are good people, but 5% are cults. They can't do anything about it. That's it. They're just, if we could fire them, we would. So I asked them, identify the cults for me, and we'll start this program of meeting on a regular basis and being facilitated. Well, it was a curious thing happened. The culls, the good people are people that sat there and said, I don't have anything to talk about. No, I'm fine, everything's great. But the culls are really upset. They're the ones smashing their fists through the walls and kicking the Coke machine and stuff. They're the ones who you say, well, what are some of the things we talk about? I say, well, and off they go. And there's a flip. It's like the culls all of a sudden became the leaders.
Wow.
Because the others, in fact, the others had to go through a process often of finding their anger. They had finding their rage, where they had suppressed their own selves so deeply that they had to rediscover that rage. And then they, it was like, it got to the point where people would come raging. Usually they got mad at me. They would come running up at me really, really angry, and there was a little click in my mind. It would go, oh good, we got one more. So it was like they'd be mad at me because one guy says, I didn't sleep at all last night because of you. I had completely forgotten about that pay cut. So anyway, my experience is that people transform. People transform. Everybody wants this. But the reason why they adhere to that other way is because they don't think it's possible to change. They don't think it's possible to get that kind of change.
So, one important next step seems to be convincing people it's possible so that they'd actually participate.
Yeah, well, see, we don't actually, it's true, the participation we want, if it's difficult, is to have people pay attention to what the Wisdom Council comes up with.
Right.
Now, I thought that we would convince people that it needed to be an amendment and everybody would have an amendment. Now, all of a sudden, we don't have a problem. Everybody's going to pay attention to the presentation when it's a constitutionally sanctioned we the people. But, so in a community, how do you get people to pay attention? Well, we can get people to pay attention to 22 guys on a football field, or a soccer field or whatever. I mean, it's like somehow or other we know the technology that required to get people to pay attention to a small group of people. How do we use that technology to, some of us cleverly people? We don't have to get we don't have to get the permission of Congress to do this, to set up a constitutional convention. We don't have to get the permission of the special interest. We can just do it because we're setting up all we're doing is adding a conversation to the system that already exists. And the difficulty is to just get people to pay attention, which is a technology we know how to do. Somebody knows how to do it. I don't know how to do it because I haven't been very good at it yet.
So you're seeing this Wisdom Council process starting as a parallel and small at first and just growing organically as it involves more people, as it starts producing wise proclamations,
Yes.
and as people start paying attention to it.
Yeah, actually there's a new process that I think that was my hypothesis that would work.
Okay.
But I'm finding that that's harder to go than I thought. So what's happening is that there's a new invention called the Creative Insight Council. And that's where you pick the topic ahead of time.
Yeah.
Randomly select people.
Yeah.
And that has the advantage of everybody's excited about that as a new way to involve citizens in figuring out tough issues.
Yeah.
So governments are saying, hey, our budgets are going, we don't have any money. We don't have any money, we're cutting services, we don't know what to do, we don't have any options, we can't raise taxes. What do we do?
Yeah.
Well, here's a way to involve the citizens and have the citizens figure out what they want and ask government to help to do it. So here's a way that government, it's a door It's a new door the government doesn't know about yet.
Mhm.
But if they did, they'd jump on it.
Mhm.
And it's also possible, so I just heard about this Sunday, about a community in Austria, in Tyrol, where they had a pool, a covered pool, and they want to close it down or rebuild it, and they didn't know what to do about the money and so forth, so they convened a Creative Insight Council to look into this.
Right.
And the breakthrough that they had was, hey, this is an emotional thing. This is not about a building. This is about us. This is when we learn to swim. This is something that fits into our community that we want to maintain. We don't need a big one. We just need to have something there that is nice quality. So we can reduce the size a whole bunch, put something there with a high quality that gives our children a chance to learn how to swim. That's what we want. And so that was a big, nobody had that on the map. And so that was what the group came up with. And so the government's thrilled that here's a way to deal with these complex issues.
Right.
And so the cities around are thinking, hey, we've got some issues that we can, we'd like to try too. So I think that's the door, because we can now work through government and actually get paid, which is this other stuff doesn't get anybody any money. But this way we can get paid and consult to government, and we can also consult to conglomerations of nonprofits and so forth to find out something, and then have when the government sends out a letter saying, hey, we need you to pay attention to this citizen group, and could you please come, and it's going to be on TV and stuff, you get more attendance.
It's like a super enhanced focus group.
Well, yeah, it is, except it isn't about, a focus group is where you send people off and they tell the people who are really in charge what the secret information that they need to know in order to make clever decisions. Usually they take advantage of the public, but
Well, focus group, the way I understand it, is like a representative sample of your customers, for example,
right,
to find out, well, how are you liking this product?
right,
Or what kind of change would you like to see, change A or change B
right,
in this service?
right,
And get people's
right.
real thoughts about it, etc., and compile those and hand it to marketing or
Yeah, so marketing sits there.
product development.
So you go away, you were in the commit focus, you're gone, and we're marketing, now we have this information.
Yeah.
And we make better decisions.
Right.
But that's not what's happening here.
Yeah. So
What's happening here is that you are the decision maker. We're bringing the citizen group in, and you are as a group are evolving a group conclusion.
Right.
And you walk out there and say, hey, this is really cool, we got this figured out.
Right.
And the citizens are invited, and the citizens all go, whoa, and they turn and they talk, and then you call out and you find out, gee, the whole room's this way. Everybody. So the people it's the people, from the people to the people. And it's not from isolated people to the people, it's from a symbolic we the people to the people.
Right. Right.
And then you realize, oh, we're getting not only a symbolic we the people, but anybody who's paying attention is pretty much on board.
So that seems like a really an enormous leap to be able to create that.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So, and it seems to happen like the magic sauce is in the dynamic facilitation of a group,
That's right.
where something like this can emerge.
That's right. I didn't
That
know
actually resonates
Yes.
with the larger population who wasn't even in the room.
Right.
Okay.
I didn't know that when I wrote my book. See, I didn't even, I mentioned dynamic facilitation, but not like, hey, this is necessary.
Yeah.
However you come up with unity, that's fine. That's
Right.
what I thought. But what I realized is that when we did the practice wisdom councils, we found out that they were working even though we didn't have an amendment. See, I thought it required an amendment. That was the end of it. We can't, just doing it in communities isn't going to do much because there's no we the people here to bless this group. So but it was turned out it was the choice creating, quality of thinking that makes this, that is resonant. When this group comes up with its joint conclusion, it creates a we, and this we is a resonant we. Because everybody looks
so
at it.
illuminate that a little bit. Illuminate, how does that happen? Because I can imagine being skeptical about that, or just really not getting that this resonance or this choice creating can create, come up with decisions that everybody will be on board with.
Yeah, see, the key is the word decision. They don't. You
Okay.
can't. If they came up with decisions, then nobody would be on board with it.
So explain that difference.
Well, a decision is something that you make where you weigh options, and the root for decision is to cut away. You cut away and select one option of the many.
So when the group, the Creative Insight Council in Austria, came up with this idea, what we really need is a smaller pool so we can have our kids have a place to go learn.
Right.
And it's all about the emotional, the history
Right.
of it and everything.
Right.
We don't need to recreate this big, massive behemoth.
Right.
They cut away the option to just fill in the pool. They cut away the option to
No,
rebuild the old one.
No,
And they didn't they decide on here's the option
Well,
that really works
no,
for
they
us?
didn't. This is where our language breaks down, because
Oh,
I mean that's what business likes to hear, that word decide,
Yeah.
decision. So I use it when I'm talking to business people, but actually, technically, no. What they did is that they created an option that wasn't there. They didn't cut anything away.
mhm.
They were constantly in a mode of creation.
Okay, so there was something that was created as an option that wasn't on the map
It
before.
wasn't on the map.
Right.
And so but it wasn't like they cut anything away or judged anything bad. There was no judgment in that.
Uh-huh.
What they did is they just talked in a creative way, and then looked around and realized that everybody was kind of on the same page.
Uh-huh.
And then when they go into the room and they tell the story of what they did, anybody who's watching kind of puts away that whole decision-making mode, especially that self-interested negotiation mode,
Yeah.
and they kind of get into the story of what's going on.
Huh.
And then they're realizing at the same time that, you know, it's like, you sit there when you start to listen to these people, you sit there like this, and all you realize, oh, they're not thinking like that. They're thinking in this other way. They're trying to find out what's best for everybody.
Yeah.
And here's what they came up with. And so they're not doing the normal political thinking.
Hmm.
So the person watching kind of gets that and says, oh, I know how to do that kind of thinking. You know, I'm going to be, yeah, okay, well, I can see that. But then, they get into small groups and the other kind of thinking sneaks in and comes back, and they go back and forth a little bit. But if we could keep this thing going, it's like, yeah, this is what we do, and we call timeout. We don't have to play the game in the timeout. We can be in this place on the balcony, kind of visiting and sipping coffee, trying to figure out what's best for everybody. And then saying, okay, let's have this system. Now we'll go compete. Let's have this game. Here's the rules of the game. Let's set it up. Okay, now I'm in the game, and I want to win. But then we call a timeout every so often, and we talk about whether this game is working for all of us.
So I think you were kind of getting to it, but let's come back to this idea of choice creating. Okay, I think I got what you said, the difference between a decision-making process where you're weighing options and saying not this, this is the best thing we got, versus a more creative, let's find the best way to serve everybody, where everything's on the table and things we couldn't imagine are possibilities, and something emerges from that.
Yes.
There's an emergent quality.
Except as facilitator, I don't even have to say that.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is managing the space.
So tell me a little bit
People
more
come to
about
that
about just what actually makes that happen. How does that happen? We're not accustomed to this.
Yeah.
You know, it's not part of my experience going to a city council meeting or a board meeting or
Right.
any kind of meeting. Doesn't happen like that. So
Right.
what's different? What's the ingredients that bring that out of ordinary people?
Well, in a normal meeting, what we do is we say, look, keep your frustrations down. I mean, you shouldn't bring them here, really. And, you know, or if you're frustrated, we'll give you 3 minutes, you can say what you want, and then be quiet, you know, something like that. Or in other words, you need to self-manage. That's what we tell people. And what happens is that the person, maybe they're trying to say, okay, well, I'll just sit on all this energy I've got. But that energy happens to be a big portion of them. That's their passion.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not having that, we're not allowing in the room. So that person's working with a part of themselves. And so they leave the room, they're not even committed to what you came up with because they weren't fully there.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing here is we're saying, okay, tell me what you think, what issue you want to work on, what issue, if we start with issues that people care about, and then we say, well, tell me what your answer is.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what you think ought to happen. And they'll tell you something, and then they get to hear from themselves that other people are having concerns, and actually first the people want to say, no, that's a pile of crap, you know, but we say, oh, you have concerns about that. Maybe you could tell us what the concerns are. And so everybody's kind of hearing, everybody brings a little piece of the puzzle, and all of a sudden we're slipping into puzzle solving mode rather than being huffy about it.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're being creative together, and then all of a sudden we realize that each person actually, everything they say is adding value to what we got up here.
Mm-hmm.
And we're looking at it, we're saying stuff, we're also seeing what we're saying, and we're saying to ourselves, oh my gosh, that doesn't quite make as good a sense as I thought it did.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also seeing what the group is saying. So each one of us is seeing what I'm saying and what the group is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it becomes an interesting thing to figure out how do we get all these pieces that are there into one thing that we're all saying. And then it's okay that somebody says, oh, you know, that's a pile. We're not doing this in a negotiation way. We're doing this in a way of, you know, we have this impossible to solve problem, but we have to be, if creativity exists, then of course we can solve it, or of course we can enter into a space where like a breakthrough could happen. So yes, our systems are set up to outlaw choice creating.
Mm-hmm.
If choice creating exists, then this system cannot survive. We cannot have the box in charge if we are taking time out to come together and figure out what we want, because now we're in charge.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually that's going to dawn on us, that we're actually in charge of this place. We don't have to be embedded in this system heading for a disaster, which is what we've got here. We're all embedded in the system, embedded in these systems, headed for disaster. We don't have to. If there was a we here, we the people, that was thoughtful and respectful and cognizant, then we could set up systems that would work a whole lot better. And in fact, if there is this we, then there really already is a system. Just us, the few of us, setting this up
Mm-hmm.
can transform the political system, the economic system, the culture, the whole thing. So if how do we think, talk, and make collective choices? Well, if there's a we, and that's supersedes the political system. Really, it's we thinking, talking, and making collective choices.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a we that allocates resources and decides what to produce, etc., that's that we.
Mm-hmm.
We can set up a system to do it individually, but it's essentially a new political, economic, cultural system.
So, when we're talking about systems change, the system as it is has some very strong stakeholders, people who are invested in the system as it is, because they
They're winning.
Certain bet, exactly.
They're
They're
winning.
winning the game.
Yeah,
So the people who are winning the
Yeah.
game aren't going to much like becoming just one of we.
well, it seems that way.
Okay, so that's the concern. I just want to raise that. What do
Yeah.
we do about that?
It seems that way, but if they're in the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
this is a very exciting conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's a conversation we don't have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't think it's possible, so as long as I don't think it's possible, then I'm gonna be hanging on to my special interests.
Right.
But as soon as I'm in a we with everybody, I actually do want everybody to thrive.
Yeah.
It's better for me. It's better for all of us. I mean, it's more fun. I'm actually the person that would actually save somebody's life if I saw them, in desperate need. But I've forgotten that part of me.
Mm-hmm.
I've put that aside. So these CEOs and whatever who are carrying on in the system, if they have a time, they go to their cabin in the woods and they like nature and they cycle and, I mean, that's who we really are.
Yeah.
This is about getting to where we really are, what our real values are. And we, of course, forget them because the system has other values in charge. So this is the danger, is that here's an actual strategy to solve this problem. This whole mess, all at once. Shortcut. And whoever's, watching this video or the next one, which is better, I'm sure, I hope, likely to just walk away and not think about it anymore. It's like we have a nonprofit that's got no money.
Mm-hmm.
And we're trying to do this stuff. And one other thing, this is inevitable. This is not an option.
Yeah.
I don't see this as an option. Somebody got something else better? There might be something better, I don't know what it is, but this is going to happen. Pretty soon the veil is going to fall from people's eyes and they're all going to go, oh geez, yeah, I've been supporting it a long time. I've been supporting this since the beginning. Well, but yeah, this needs to happen.